His Excellency Paul Kagame decided to move his forces from the mountains in Virunga, Muhabura, Gahinga, Sabyinyo, and elsewhere, and he decided to launch attacks in this very area. And he changed the tactics from mobile guerrilla warfare to positional warfare. He instructed all the commanders and the soldiers to dig trenches just across here. He started by digging his own trench, that one you see. So he brought all the commanders, they toured his trench, they saw his trench, then he ordered them to go and dig trenches for themselves and for the soldiers. In other words, they were to fight a positional war, they were to face the enemy. The enemy were equipped with artillery, with mortars, with APCs, armored personnel carriers, helicopters, and everything. So he was determined this time to hold ground, not to fight the hit and run tactics. So it was tough, as Bashana mentioned it. It was very tough because Habyarimana concentrated all his forces on the RPA. All the forces, all the equipment. So from July 91 to almost January 92, every day, every night, there was intense fighting. The fighting you can term as the fighting of attrition, so atrocious, where soldiers day and night were fighting each other at a distance of meters. So it was tough. It required so much resilience, so much courage on the part of the RPA that was ill-equipped, but they managed and held the positions. One outcomes of holding this area here was that Habyarimana started agreeing to negotiate political negotiations in Arusha. Before that, he had refused to negotiate because he said the RPA was nowhere in the country. But by being in this so-called centimeter, it was evident that the RPA held a part of Rwanda, and therefore there was reason to negotiate. So that was one of the achievements. But because he concentrated all his forces across here, and there was like a kind of stalemate, His Excellency decided to abandon here and to attack Byumba. Byumba is where you will go tomorrow, I think. Murindi, Byumba. In other words, he decided to expand the area by opening up another area in the northern part of Rwanda. The most important thing here is how does one take that decision? The decision-taking aspect is the most important thing. In a war like this one, who takes the decision? It's only a single individual, the commander-in-chief, who takes that decision. And in taking the particular decision of leaving here to go and attack Byumba, it was not easy. I remember I was part of that meeting. We were all seated here as senior commanders here. He sat there. He gave the orders for the units to move from here to go and attack Byumba. There was some kind of resistance. Of course, they could not refuse, but internally you could see they were either not convinced because they thought, or they reasoned that if they left this place they had held for almost a year, the enemy would occupy it, and then we would be nowhere. We would fail to attack Byumba successfully. We would lose this ground that we had held, and we would start again, run around like we had done before. So But of course, the commander-in-chief is the decision maker. He takes decisions that are hard, that are difficult, but makes sure that they are executed and successfully. So he moved himself with the forces from here to Murindi, to Byumba, attacked Byumba successfully, and then expanded territory. When the territory was expanded, defended it successfully. Another dynamic that came in that maybe Bashana did not talk of is that after the attack of Byumba, Habyarimana got reinforcement and support from the French army. The French came. They supported Habyarimana in vain. They fought until, in their own words, they were fighting a force that was faible. That's what they said. Armée rwandaise faible, something like that. So they abandoned the front line. So unless there is anything that you would ask from what Bashana has told you, if there's anything, any question, any clarification on what you want to know about here, then we can give answers.
Yes, so hi, my name is Ruth Mialanitsa. I'm from Canada, Montreal, and I'm very honored to be here and ask you questions. So my question is, how do you feel after coming here after all these years?
After?
After all these years, how do you feel?
After all those years?
Yeah, coming here.
How do I feel? Do I even know how I feel? First of all, the place has totally changed. I could get lost if I came alone, because it has totally changed. It used to be banana covered, all this area was covered by plantations. Bigger plantations, not smaller ones like this one. So the place has totally changed. It has been built, you can see schools, you can see, settlements. That time it was only banana plantations and it was difficult. And the environment then was totally different, From July 91 up to January 92, the smell here, the smell was only of gunfire. It was impossible to have a day of silence. There was no day of silence, day in, day out. So coming here just with young people, students like you, and moving around, it's amazing. It takes me back to those days, and the memories sort of come back. Yeah, sort of come back. I remember, one thing I remember vividly is that this was the headquarters of the chairman of the High Command. He lived in that trench, yes? But at one time, the enemy overpowered the forces ahead, descended from that hill across until his headquarters here. So his close protection guys are the ones who fought that battle. His close protection, to the extent that we lost two young men. One was second lieutenant, Hussein. Another one was another young man, an officer called Mwesije, and 3 others were injured. So you can imagine how tense it was, to the extent that the real battle and the real fighting could happen at the trench of the chairman of the High Command. But as Bashana said, what the RPA had as its strength was our level of resilience. The level of resilience, the level of not wanting to let go, to fight on until the last man. So that's how the RPA decided to, keep this place. So what Bashana talked about as sieging. Sieging was a tactic that is an innovation by the president himself. Whenever the enemy dug in a trench across our defenses, he ordered his force to go behind the enemy lines and also dig trenches. In other words, he would cut off the enemy supply lines. But our forces that have gone behind the enemy lines are also cut off by the same enemy they have surpassed. Therefore, both of you are cut off. Both of you have no supply lines. Both of you will go hungry. Nobody will eat. It will depend who gets hungry faster and who resists hunger more. And in all cases, the RPA resisted more, and the Habyarimana's army decided always to vacate their positions. So if you stayed first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day without food, seventh day, you would know Habyarimana's force, government force, would find its way out of their defense. There is no point in a time when our force ever succumbed and left its defense because of hunger. In other words, our level of resilience was very, very high.
Hi, my name is Yannick Mazina. I'm from Belgium, and thank you for having us. I have two small questions. The first one is, when you were organizing everything strategically, were you expecting the genocide to happen? Like, did you have any info, or were you expecting something? And the second one is, when you send the political side to the parliament for the peace implementation, did you have faith that it was going to happen, like the president was going to sign and the peace was going to come, while at the same time you were fighting here?
Yeah, there were signs that genocide could happen. There were periodic trials of doing genocide. Habyarimana had killed people, so many people in Bugesera at one time, killed so many people in Chibirira, in the western part of Rwanda, and many people were being killed. From 1990, people were killed over time. But nobody knew that genocide could happen at the scale it did. For example, we knew the Interahamwe militias were being trained. Every year from 1991, each district was providing 600 militias to be trained as Interahamwe. The French contributed to training them, and others, and the FAR was training them. But we did not know that genocide could happen at the rate and magnitude it did. Because the RPF had allies within other political parties within the government that were part of government. RPA was allied to PSD, was allied to MDR, was allied to PER, was allied to very many other political parties. Habyarimana had an internal opposition. It was militarily, politically, RPA was fighting him. But politically, there were other forces that were fighting him. So we were not alone. And we did not know that he could manage to tilt the situation that almost all citizens and all youth succumbed to the ideology of genocide and ethnicity and carry out genocide at the rate they did. And by sending the 600 battalion to Kigali, it was a part of fulfilling the Arusha negotiations, implementing the Arusha negotiations. It was provided for that the RPF would send politicians and a protection force to Kigali so that the implementation of the Arusha takes place. So the chairman of the High Command fulfilled his part of the obligation in implementing the Arusha. Of course, with risks. He knew there were risks. He knew there were risks because the hostility was very clear. The hostility was very clear. Whenever we met these officers of the Force Armée Rwandaises, they would tell us clearly that you guys, you will never be part of the Rwandan army. We would argue that, but the Arusha provides that we shall mix 40 to 60. 40 RPA, 60 government. They say that is nonsense. It will never happen. We thought maybe It was just out of their emotions and poor understanding, but I think they meant it. So sending the 600 battalion and the politicians to Kigali, it was a risk undertaken by the commander-in-chief. Only such risks, such tough decisions are taken by the leader. He took the risk, but in any eventuality that the force could be attacked, he knew he would make an intervention, which he did. Within 2 days, after 7th of April, on the 10th, the first force reached Kigali, reached Sende, and supported the 3rd Battalion successfully.
My name is Zelda Koulibaly. I'm from Senegal. So my first question was, I mean, obviously not all of you guys came from Uganda, but for those who you said, like you mentioned, everyone was very resilient when they were fighting here. Would you say that some of the past discrimination that you maybe experienced from the Rwandan government at the time, do you think it helped you to become more resilient than the government forces? And my second question is, you mentioned like Paul Kagame held like a lot of morale in the group, and even when there was like disagreement amongst the group or the senior commanders, you guys still managed to
resolve the issues.
Yeah, execute your plans. So how exactly did he hold morale, and like how did you guys kind of like work out those like ideological differences, etc.?
First of all, there were no ideological differences. The cause to fight for Rwanda at that time was well understood by all the fighters. Whether you came from Burundi, you came from Tanzania, from Zaire, from Rwanda here, from Uganda, the cause to fight for the liberation of Rwanda was clear and understood by everyone. But of course, and naturally, whenever you subject people to difficulties like fighting, definitely you will have people creating reasons for them not to fight, or to explain some of their failures, just to create artificial differences. But that was the responsibility of the command to iron out those small differences of where people came from, of who came from where, this and that. But after a very short period, after 1991, by 92, the RPA was a homogeneous force that you could not identify and tell where each one came from. The force was cohesive, it was united just for a single purpose. So there were no major differences within the force. So for the attack of Byumba, His Excellency sent a team of people to do reconnaissance, to carry out intelligence, to look for the best avenues into the area, which way could be used, what are the vulnerabilities, what are the risks. They came back, gave him the intelligence report, and worked on the intelligence report to make a plan. With the plan, then he authorized the operations, which he himself led. Yeah, but surviving here, Bashana talked about it. We are fighting a guerrilla war, and a guerrilla war basically means that you are not a conventional force, therefore you don't demand so much in terms of sustainment. And as long as you have food, you have medicine, the rest you will provide. If I tell you that from Birunga Mountains, very few people had shoes, they walked barefooted. Others, they had only one single cloth that they had nothing to change or to do what. So for a guerrilla, there's just the minimum that you need. This place had a lot of plantations, some crops, beans, whatever, banana. So we fed on those. For the ammunitions, whenever we defeated the enemy, that was our supply. It was the first thing. The enemy would be supplied with corned beef, tinned beans, beers, meat, all sorts of things. But whenever the RPA defeated the enemy, overran the enemy defense, before they go for the corned beef, they went for the guns and the bullets, first and foremost. So we go to the arms from our enemy. Yeah. So nk'abana nk'urubyiruko, as the youth, I turn back to you now. Mbabaze, what do you learn from this? What do you gain from this? Is this just a tour for leisure and pleasure? What do you get out of it? What do you learn? What do you take? Because at the end of the day, Rwanda is yours, and definitely the generation that liberated this country is handing over to you, the youth, and you will hand over to the others. So, what will you do with this legacy? Will it just be a story that will at one time die? What is your take?
We're very grateful to be here. I wanted to be asking you this question. I'm not even asking, but obviously answering the question that you asked. For me personally, not only have I been involved in this tour so far, but I also did a tour last year. And the aim was from 2022, when I came here for, I think, the second or third time from a long time. It was my first memories in the country. I made a plan and an aim, obviously with helping my parents and my community, to immerse myself with the culture and the history of this country. Going to Uganda, not only that, but coming here and receiving information from obviously different languages, different cultures, meeting new people, and obviously gaining the knowledge that you've given us about not only the war, the ideologies as well, the tactics, and also the general history of the country. It's been very truth-telling, and it's been something that has defined my identity and my upbringing.
Sure.
So thank you for that. And yeah, with the future, obviously, it's up to us. It's our responsibility to continue it forward through the ideologies, through the values that obviously have been shared through not only actions but also words and deeds. So
Perfect. That's a good attitude. Of course, we don't expect you to come back to these trenches, to live here, to do the sieging, to do that. But we expect you to fight, to continue the liberation struggle from where it is. From where it is, where Rwanda is now, it requires your effort to propel it even further in advancing and developing it. So it is another phase of war. Bashana told you of the various phases. So the phase at which we are now is the phase of socio-economic development of Rwanda. And this is where your contribution is most needed. As you are outside there, you are in Europe, you are in America, Canada, what are you there for? What are you there for? What will you bring to your country? What will you do to add to what will lead to the development of this country? That is the expectation. That is the challenge you have. Because Rwanda must continue to develop. Must continue to. Those who died here, there are so many skeletons here. So many in this centimeter here. You don't know how many youth as old as your age that are laid here. The bones here, so many of them, so much blood. Where you are stepping here, you are stepping on blood of youth, the youth of your age that died here. So for them not to have died in vain is for you to continue with what they died for. They died for the development of this country, the advancement of this country, and this is where you are expected to give your effort. So we should not see you lacking in that respect. Isn't it so? Okay, good.
So one of the youth coordinators I'm one of the committee organizer of this Rwanda Youth Tour.
Yeah.
And in the name of the other committee, you said a lot, and I don't have a lot to add on it. But what I could say is by doing this tour, we understand where we came from, what was the struggle, and what we have now. And when you understand the treasure that you have in your hand, when you understand the struggle that made you get it, you know how to protect it, know to go. This tour help us to know that, to get that, also to not take that for granted and fight for that. So we thank you and all in Rwanda for what you did. And I talked so on the name of the committee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.